So we're going to talk about sleep now, because it's not surprising that many of us have encountered sleep problems at some point in our lives, and it seems quite a common problem, especially in our Western cultures. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that can get in the way. So I'm going to talk about how to perhaps consider certain things that might influence your sleep and your routine. The first one would be stimulants. So stimulants, that's covering a whole range of subjects here. First of all, caffeine. I'm again bringing up caffeine. It's just because some people are very sensitive to it. For instance, I have a friend who has to stop drinking caffeine from as early as 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because she does notice that it will interfere with her sleep that evening. Some people can consider having it up until like 7, 8 o'clock at night. But in general, if you're looking at eating and drinking, as well as caffeine, eating and drinking late at night can also keep the gut activated, and the need to go to the toilet might come into play as well. So that's another way where your body might feel like it's needing to be busy, and that energy is there and it's keeping you awake. You're also looking at things like nicotine and alcohol, cannabis. These are stimulating to many people. Cannabis is a bit of a controversial one, because many people feel that it's a relaxant and it can help to go off to sleep. But for many, it can be stimulating on the mind, and that could mean that you're not getting a real, rewarding sleep. We're also looking at blue light from devices, so from your mobile phones, your TVs, and from tablets and laptops. And also medication. Sometimes the timing of our medications can be slightly unhelpful, and you might be having a medication later on in the evening that is contributing to you feeling more active and keeping your brain awake. So that's some of the things that can stimulate the brain. Some of the helpful things that you might want to know when you're looking at sleep, coming away from the first assumption that many people make. Many people think that they can't sleep because their brains are anxious, or they're overthinking, or they're stressed. And while that is a very common theme, there's also other physiological reasons which we will cover. And that is things like we've just spoken about, the level of caffeine and stimulants, but also the level of cortisol. So if you have been quite stressed and you have a high level of cortisol in your body, that will make it difficult for you to sleep as well. But the body naturally will reduce its cortisol levels, and they're found to be at their lowest around midnight. So you're looking at finding the sweet spot for you to be able to fall asleep as well. It's quite a common thing that people find that if they don't get to bed between certain hours, that they don't find that they can sleep, that ability to sleep has passed them by. So it's good to find your own sweet spot. We're also looking at things like the room temperature. Some people need their room to be fairly warm so that they can feel comfortable, safe in order to fall asleep. But also, if your room is too hot for your body to tolerate, that can be something that will stop you from falling asleep or keep you wakening up. So it's important to find the correct temperature that works for you. I often find that I'm in the kind of cold zone, so I find that if I take a hot water bottle to bed, it really provides that comfort, and it just helps bring your stress levels down. Others might feel that need to open a window and be more cool at night and have more lighter bedding materials as well. But you're also looking at the hormonal influence here. Now, everyone's brain interacts differently, and everyone's brain chemistry, and they're starting to find that particularly in mental health. Dr. Amen is someone who goes over this in his psychiatry videos. He speaks about learning how to treat the type of brain that you have, and everyone's brain can differ. And I guess that some people could be low in serotonin, others could be low in melatonin, others could be low in dopamine. So finding the best methods for yourself. So one of the things you want to consider is the fact that if you have, for instance, low estrogen, so someone who is near to menopause, perimenopausal, or going through the menopause, their estrogen levels are lowering, and that can in turn affect your melatonin levels. So melatonin is something that can be stimulated naturally, but it starts to reduce with your other hormones in your body being affected. So you might want to look into some supplements such as I used 5-HTP, lemon balm, and L-tryptophan. These are all kind of precursors. They kind of influence the body into creating melatonin, so that might help you to create enough melatonin to sleep or tick over into sleep. You're also looking at other supplements in a herbal method. So valerian root I found to be really beneficial, especially if you have it in a tea form. So a liquid form can absorb much quicker as well. So valerian root tea, and I found it to be more helpful if it was in tea bag or loose tea forms, with the minimum percentage being 11% or above. And if you combine this with a bath as well, especially with essential oils such as vetiver, I've found vetiver really helpful for myself. I've also been an insomniac, and I've had to find ways to overcome that. And all of these, actually, everything that I've spoken about was something that came together and contributed to my insomnia, rather than the theory of it just all being stress or anxiety related. I found that I would end up with anxiety because of some of the physical reasons that kept me from sleep, such as pain, such as the temperature of the room, such as a lowering of certain hormones, or cortisol being high, or eating too late at night, drinking too late at night, alcohol, other stimulants such as sugars. And yeah, all of these were really coming together in one big pot to contribute to my sleeping problems. And it's just breaking the cycle. And if you're finding that sometimes pain is getting in the way, then looking at ways to manage your pain and finding better strategies for pain management, and avoiding some of the things that might exacerbate that, or finding ways to ensure that your cortisol levels are as low as possible before you go to sleep. And that can be things like using sound frequency music. You can find these online. I like to use meditation musics that are sleep inducing. You can also find some guided meditations which help just realign your thoughts so that you can let go. I've also found it useful that if I don't have any sleep, then the important thing is not to let the mind get taken over. When your mind hasn't slept, you're also going to be feeling more fatigued and more vulnerable, and you can easily step into an over analysing mode. And that means that you just need to centre yourself much more. And one of the things that I find that helps is just remind yourself that even though you haven't slept, to get through commitments and get through things that are important to you, you can actually trick the mind in a way by telling yourself that although you haven't slept, the rest is still important, and having had that restful time in bed is enough for you to get through that day. And usually you can get through that day and find that you managed through it. You weren't at your best, but things still perhaps went well, and you had some achievements and some things to be proud of. And you get to the end of that day, and you will find that you're in a good space that evening, just to let that go, because the worry there of you not being able to get through a day because of lack of sleep isn't so pressing, because you were able to get through that day even though you were fatigued, even though you weren't at your best, and things went pretty well considering. Lavender is one essential oil that people like to hit up because it's quite well known for being a relaxant, but lavender is actually a middle to top note. So although it is known to be good for anxiety and tension and a stress relief, it's perhaps not one of the most beneficial ones to hit up when you're looking to induce, your sleep hormones. So you'd be looking at middle to base notes or base notes. So things like deeper bodied oils, you're looking at things like ylang ylang, jasmine, rose, vetiver, again I'm mentioning here, and also Some of your other base notes that you might want to consider, chamomile, you can also have chamomile tea. There are so many options to explore. Please don't feel that you're up against something that feels impossible. Sleep for me had been something that really impacted me, and it felt like it was never ending. It went on for weeks or it went on for months, but eventually I learned to feel confident that my body would naturally get over this, and if I'd done everything I could to support it, eventually it would realign. And you will find that if you take on some of the strategies that we've spoken about through this entire series, your body will be more naturally balanced and more likely to be able to naturally have a good state to fall asleep, but also have a restful sleep, and be able to be less stimulated. But also you'll find that your mindset will be more supported with all of the measures which we've covered in this series. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I've tried to cover as much as I could in short space of time. Some of the videos have gone over, but I wanted to be as thorough as possible, and I really hope that even if it's small things that you've taken away, that these will make a huge difference to your everyday life, and you've learned that it is definitely more than mindfulness.